program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran. On this third day of March 2022, it's a Thursday, and we welcome you to today's discussions, news, and all that goes into current affairs. Thank you for being subscribers of Cignal TV channels 8 and 250, watching One News PH. For those of you who wish to continue watching us beyond the realm of Cignal TV, you can watch our programs on YouTube. Just punch in One News PH agenda and on Facebook.com/One News PH. Okay, today I will be speaking to three different guests. First will be Congressman Mikee Romero, ang lone wolf. At least in the past few weeks, he was the single voice howling at the moon, asking for the government to bring down prices. Palagay ko na maus na siya. But it seems that his urgent plea for remedying or fixing the problem in high fuel prices and taxes is finally being heard, if not acted on. And then after our interview with Congressman Mikee Romero, we will then interview a previous guest here on the agenda. We feature him regularly, annually actually, I have to confess, because Deakin is a guy behind Lifeline, ambulance services, the medical EMS medical services, 916-911, sabi nga nila, because many of you discovered during COVID-19 that in the surge, in every surge, one thing that was hard to get was medical attention and ambulances. Okay, and last but not the least, we will also be speaking with Julia Abad, also returning resource person for agenda on women empowerment, because the Philippine Business Coalition for Women Empowerment is about to host an event which will be very interesting para sa inyong mga kababaihan. Ika nga, gisingin na ang women power sa Pilipinas. So let's go on, start the day. Our daily starter is from Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 13. And there it goes, I have seen a grievous evil under the sun, wealth hoarded to the harm of its owners. Ayan po, yung mga ika nga nagho-hoarding. Tapos biglang wala naman pala, nag-panic buying ka. Pagkatapos wala naman palang mangyayaring disaster na puno lang yung bodega mo ng dilata, hindi mo ngayon alam kung anong gagawin mo. Yung mga trabaho ng trabaho, those of you who keep hoarding wealth, trying to make money, and then you get sick and you end up spending all that money in the hospital. So just a reminder, do not hoard wealth, hoard goods, hoard food. Kasi yung hoarding po, no? Yung pag hindi nga, hindi imbak katakawan na po. It does not always benefit those who have so much of something, it robs you in the end. Okay, let's now go to the front page of the Philippine Star quickly. The time is 8:05. Headline of the Philippine Star, Duterte seeks review of oil deregulation. We will discuss that with Senator Mikee Romero in just a few minutes, because it seems that Malacanang has found it necessary to listen to people like Mikee Romero and ask them, ano ba gagawin natin dito, Bok? Okay, at the header of the Philippine Star, DOH, we are prepared for COVID worst case scenario. Okay, kumbaga, the Boy Scout na raw sila, they are ready. We will see, but let's all pray that there is no worst case scenario. Kasi ano pa silbi ng mga bakuna natin kung mag-worst case scenario na naman tayo. That huge picture of the front page are people lining up for the Ash Wednesday services na nabububuran po ng abo yung mga noo, the cross being drawn on the foreheads of Catholics. A reminder, from dust thou come, to dust thou return. Okay, and then former Manila Archbishop Luis Antonio Cardinal Tagle has called on the Catholic faithful to devote their time to prayer, fasting, and almsgiving as the Lenten season started yesterday, Ash Wednesday. So yun po, no? Hindi po bakasyon ang Holy Week, okay? The Lenten season is not about meditation and vacation. It is about reflection, repentance, and giving to others. Okay, now that photo in the center of the Philippine Star is a photo not in the Philippines. Akala ng iba, Pilipinas eh. Sa Hong Kong po yan. Mga lespo, representatives or officers of the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department and Leisure and Cultural Services Department monitoring, visiting foreign workers in Hong Kong who were either fired, refused entry by their employers because of the widespread cases of COVID-19. So they have been forced to live under bridges and public spaces. So yan po, no? Even in Hong Kong, they are now going through what we had to go through. Pero tayo, hindi tayo nagpalayas ng mga katulong, hindi tayo nagpalayas ng mga empleyado. Pinahospital natin, okay? Iba yung Pilipino eh. Okay, number of COVID cases hit new low this year. It's now down to 866 new cases yesterday. Pero 53 people were reportedly died from COVID. And doon po sa reports yesterday, eh, medyo marami pa rin sa NCR. In comparison, no? Karamihan, hindi marami, karamihan sa NCR pa rin because of population. Anyway, only 10 million of 37 million due for booster jobs. Kasi may mga nagsasabi na mas marami raw. No, only 10 out of 37 million are due for booster jobs. Petitioners, 27 out of the 35 petitioners against the anti-terror law has appealed or submitted an appeal for reconsideration of the anti-terror law to be declared as unconstitutional. And the World Court will hear the case of Ukraine versus Russia in the coming days, and that's it. And ayan po, yung picture na yan po, wala pong namatay dyan sa may CBCP. Nag-aalay lang po yung mga deboto na magdasal tayo for Ukraine, let's pray for Russia, and let's pray for peace. Okay, ayan, because I have 3 guests, I have to be punctual today. Let's start with our first guest. Okay, siya po yung montik-montikanan, kinukulit ko, inuudyokan ko, dinidemonyo ko noon na magtumakbo ng speaker or speakership of the House of Representatives. Mabuti na lang, mabait siya. Nagtimpi at hindi na siya nakisali sa Basagulo, but he is the one Pacman party list representative, and he has had a very significant presence in the House of Representatives. And recently was actually the one voice above many calling for the government and the Department of Energy and Department of Finance to do something about the high price of fuel and taxes on fuel. Let's bring in Congressman Mikee Romero. Kong Mikee, good morning sa imo.
Good morning ako yung Cito, and sa lahat ng nakikinig viewership mo, good morning sa lahat.
Okay, Congressman Romero, thank you for joining us this morning. Medyo nahirapan akong pahanap ka pero nahanap din kita. And because I found it commendable that you really stood up and expressed your sentiments that there is a desperation among many Filipinos regarding fuel prices, and it is not just about transportation. Kumbaga lahat tayo may tama na. What is the situation right now? Ikaw ba'y kinausap na ni Secretary Sani Dominguez? Has the President spoken with you, etc.? Because in paper, sa dyaryo, parang pinalalabas ganun.
Yeah, actually 2 weeks na akong nagka-clamor no on to hold a special session sa Congress, to call a special session. Why so is because ngayon nga yung fuel prices has gone way up, no, halos 100 per barrel na because of the Ukrainian-Russian crisis which happened. So ngayon, ang fuel naging 65 pesos, and I'm calling Congress and Malacanang to give us a special session. Break kasi kami. Break kami until after May 9. After May 23 ang balik namin, in fact. No? So only the President can call a special session at this stage. And I'm asking a suspension of the excise tax. Kasi ang excise tax from 435 2018 because of the comprehensive tax reform program ni Secretary Sani Dominguez, naging 10 pesos na. So halos dumoble na yung mga tax natin dyan. No? So I'm asking Congress, both houses, na isuspend namin yung excise tax of 10 pesos. Imagine if from 65 ngayon, i-suspend mo, babalik siya sa 55, which can already trigger a lot of spikes dito, no? Yung pagbaba ng mga spikes. So, unfortunately, sinagot ako na ng DOF and ng Malacanang na pinag-aaralan pa lang nila ngayon yung sitwasyon. No? Pero yung train law na pinasa namin ng 2018 has an automatic provision pag mataas na sa 80 pesos per barrel yung world prices, dapat matanggal yung excise tax. No? May automatic provision yan eh. Kaya lang, that provision ended in 2020. So that provision does not exist at this point. That's why we need a special session para mabawi namin yung excise tax. No?
Does it end in 2020 or by practice of law it becomes parang incorporated or an organic part? Kasi parang hindi naman yata tama na dahil nagtapos sa 2020, forever na magtataas ng tax ang gobyerno. I don't know, you're the congressman, not me.
Yung comprehensive tax reform program kasi ng gobyerno, tinaasan niya from 435 yung unleaded gasoline to 10 pesos sa tax, no?
Yeah.
So that is forever. That is forever, no? Parang yan ang means para i-increase yung revenue sources ng gobyerno para mabayaran niya yung mga kanyang build program, no? It's commendable except that from 60 pesos per barrel, $60 per barrel, tumaas ngayon to about 100 and papunta yata magdodoble yung presyo ng crude and unleaded oil sa market, sa world market. So kailangan talagang may stopgap tayo, and we don't have the regular PNOC reserves anymore, no? Kasi dapat may 90-day reserves tayo na syempre wala na ngayon because of the high prices. The reserve sana should have stabilized or iwasan yung spikes in gasoline, no? Pero sa ngayon, wala tayo noon. So it's the excise tax syempre ang I'm clamoring, and many congressmen and many senators are now clamoring for a special session on this.
Okay, now what happened? Well, apparently the president and Malacanang, his people in Malacanang are saying that we want the inputs of Congress. We are asking Congress to revisit the oil deregulation law, etc. But you can't do nothing unless the president says special session kayo. Are you confident that the president will call for a special session or is inclined to hold a special session? Kasi at the rate things are going, kabila na yung mga nagre-resign from government, mukhang marami na sa kanila, nagba-backdoor exit na. And even the president has said, nagbabalot na siya. Baka habang nagre-return of the comeback sila sa Davao, maiwan tayong nakatunganga dito.
I'm still clamoring or pinupush ko si Malacanang and the DOF to really, I'm trying to force their hand. I'm one of the leaders ng Congress ngayon as Deputy Speaker. Kaya lang, talirin kamay namin kung hindi sila magtawag ng special session, wala rin mangyayari. No? We just need 2 weeks and very precise ang gagawin namin. No? Very precise. We don't need to revisit the oil deregulation. We need to suspend the excise tax. No? Talagang gusto namin tanggalin yung 10 pisong taxes ngayon. No? Even just for 30 days or 60 days, no? Hanggat 100 pesos or $80 per barrel ang presyo ng langis.
Okay, so it's simply the excise tax you are planning to cut off, and then what? What? Because the Ukraine-Russia crisis is not over, and it doesn't look like it's going to be over soon. And it would seem that the supply chain has been disrupted. That prices will remain the same. You're saying 30 to 60 days, but what if it goes beyond that?
Yeah, as long as the price of world oil is beyond $80, the excise tax should be suspended. Yan naman ang pag-usapan namin ng Malacanang when we did the train law in 2018. Kaya lang, because nga natanggal na yung provision na yun, because after 2020, natanggal na dapat yung provision na yun. Pero ngayon, may emergency na nangyayari, emergency to nangyayari, and the spike in oil prices affects not only the petroleum or the transportation industry, but lahat na apektuhan. Talagang ang presyo ng bilihin, talagang tataas. Talagang domino effect. So again, I called Malacanang and the DOF to help us do our work. And with just one provision lang is to suspend the excise tax. And second is to provide again yung Pantawid Pasada program ng gobyerno, which gives about 6,500 pesos to the jeepney, one time, no, to the jeepney drivers. Parang ito naman yung tulong ng gobyerno sa mga jeepney drivers, sa mga bus liners, sa mga taxi, no? So itong Pantawid Pasada program, maganda rin to. So yan dalawa siya ng topic ng
Okay, now as a congressman, you're running for re-election, di ba? You're running for a third term, Kong Mikee?
Yes, this I hope.
Okay.
My third term.
Okay, now itong mga nangyayari na ito, I'm sure you've come to realize that it's not fixing prices, reducing taxes is not the solution. Kasi napaka-inefficient nga raw ng ating transport sa Pilipinas, napaka-dependent natin. We are so dependent on fossil fuel, on diesel and gasoline. And people have been saying, and bunker fuel, our power generators, etc. People have been saying na dapat i-overhaul na yung Department of Energy, i-overhaul na yung ating sistema, yung Department of Transport in such a way na we have efficient mobility and alternative energy sources. Kasi parang ang nangyayari, pag tumaas ang krudo o ang demand, maghihirap hindi lang ang Pilipino, kundi ang buong ekonomiya.
Ang problema kasi, Cito, we are import dependent on, 100% import dependent on petroleum. No? Ano ibig sabihin nito? Wala tayong buffer, no? Wala tayong reserves. So that really, kung ano yung taas ng world oil, talagang yun ang impact sa atin. Kung
Correct.
nagtaas silang 50%, 50% din ang taas dito sa sa buong Pilipinas, no? Kaya nga one of my bills is to have an strategic oil reserves of about 120 days or about 6 months para at least mag-spike man yan, nagkikick in yung mga reserves natin, hindi masyado maapektuhan, no?
Okay,
But that
pero
entails a lot
kung
of money.
Mikey, hindi ba dati, ewan ko kung ngayon, kung pinapayagan ka pa ngayon, ano? Pero dati, hindi ba nagmumotorsiklo ka?
Yes.
Okay, bike rider ka, hindi ba? And yun yung argument ngayon eh. That there are, there's so many bicycle riders, motorcycle riders, big bike riders. But it seems that the DOTR, DPWH have no inclination to shift our mobility to more fuel efficient, less space consuming transport. Pati nga sa mga trend, sabi mabuti na lang yung PNR na improve na kahit papano, MRT still running. Pero parang it seems that the contention of some experts is it's not the fuel, it's the type of transport we use.
Actually, sa US, if you think about it, the US may phase out sila ng petroleum, no? I think within 10 years, they want a certain percentage of yung mga vehicles nila as electric.
Yeah.
Electric vehicles, no? And hopefully, ganyan din magawa natin dito. We have passed some laws on phasing out the petroleum and making electric vehicles, parang renewable energy, as a significant portion of the system ng transportation sa Pilipinas.
On your part, Kong Mikey, what are ano yung mga pag-uukulan mo ng pansin if you are given a third term in Congress? Because sabi nga nila, pag third term ka na, it's for country na dapat.
Actually, realization tong nangyayaring pag-spike again, no, of the petroleum. So yung strategic oil reserve program, I think we have to push for that, no. Na magkaroon ng reserve ang Pilipinas of about siguro kahit 4 months or 6 months na kaya niya i-sustain yung any spike na mangyari until mag-stabilize, no. Usually mga 3 months lang naman yan. So yan, kailangan i-push, no. Usually trabaho yan ng PNOC before or Petron, no. Petron, yeah. When ano pa sila, when they were under the government. And ngayon wala ngayon tayo ng strategic oil reserves, no. And yung mga depot.
Hindi ba pwedeng gawin ng DOE na mandated yung mga fuel companies to stockpile or to have surplus reserve or reserves on standby? Kasi if the government does not have its state-owned petroleum company, then can the DOE be given a power o kayong mga Caltex, Shell, Petron, whatever, o yung inyong mga reserva, times 3 ninyo?
Pwedeng gawin yon, in fact, no. Pero it is the role of government as a PNOC or yung Philippine National Oil Corporation to do this, no. And I call on the DOE and the PNOC to really study yung oil reserves natin, no. We have to establish really an oil reserve system here to parry these spikes or bigla ang pagtaas ng oil prices, no. I think this is a solution that we have to look at really.
Siguro kung Mikey, pa-imbestigan nyo na rin if you get your third term kasi may mga consumer nagtatanong paano nangyari yon? Di ba yung stock nila, nabili nila last month, bakit binibenta nila sa presyo yesterday's new prices? Parang ganon. Parang may issue yung regulatory ability ng DOE na bantayan yung ano ba yung presyong ginagamit sa pagbebenta. Kasi imposible naman na kahapon dineliver, ngayon mo binenta. Crazy naman yata yun.
Yeah, I think may problema rin yung sistema natin dyan. Yung supply and demand nila halos they sell at at the world market right away, no. Kailangan may ano rin, may time na siguro about 30 days or 2 weeks bago nila itinataas yung presyo ng langis. Tama ka dyan, Kuya.
Okay, well, in any case, so gusto mong, if you are elected congressman once again, your party list gets into Congress again, you want a stockpile for fuel, etc. Any other pet bills that you have in mind?
Itong Pantawid Pasada program ng gobyerno, we have given it last 2021, kailangan ibigay ulit natin yan. And any spikes in, any pagtaas ng gasolina, kailangan tulungan din natin yung transportation sector like mga jeepney drivers, mga taxi drivers, mga bus liners. We should give per vehicles another round of 6,500 or 7,000 pesos as a subsidy. No? Parang tulong na rin sa kanila, no? Malaking bagay pa rin yan kahit na paano.
Okay, what about the suggestion that if there is a price hike, there should be an automatic price increase? Hindi na yung dadaan pa at magmamakaawa pa, magrarally pa ang mga lowest of the poorest of the poor para lang gumalaw yung mga tiga LTFRB. Parang kasi what's happening is in a squeeze, people have to beg the LTFRB, and the response of the LTFRB is bureaucracy and process.
Sa LTFRB kasi talagang mabagal yung proseso nila. Talagang they have to undergo a public hearing and any rate increases, no? But there's also a suggestion like yung ginagawa dati sa Brazil, pagka tumataas yung inflation by 5%, tataas din lahat ng presyo by 5%. So pwede rin natin gawin yan, but yung cause and effect should be known by the NEDA. No? Pwede rin yan, pero pag-aralan natin mabuti, no? Although that's a good viable source.
Yan ang gusto ko sa'yo, Congressman Romero. Tumitimpla ka, tinitimpla mo, hindi ka tulad ng Kuya Cito. Bara-bara-bay, tara, sunto ka na. Okay? Anyway, no, it's good to have people like you there. You're rational, you listen to both sides. At yeah, tambla ka. So, ika nga eh. Pero maraming salamat. Thank you very much because you, like Joey Concepcion, have been very proactive in getting government to do what they are initially resistant to. Pero bandang huli naman, nakikinig naman ang Malacanang. So we do hope you have a special session called for by the President. Now, any message para sa ating mga viewers, Kong Mikee?
Yeah, for the viewers, be vigilant and again, hindi pa naman tapos tong COVID natin and itong petroleum debacle, I think maayos naman to sa Kongreso. Again, I ask both DOE, DOF, and Malacanang for a special session to suspend this excise tax. No, I really call on heavily on this, no, knocking at your doors already kasi nakakaawa ang sambayan ng Pilipinas pag hindi natin nasuspento. Ang presyo ng bilihin, pataas lang ng pataas, walang tigil. So yun lang, Koyang, and thank you very much for this, giving me an airtime on this. Maraming salamat, Koyang.
Okay, well, it is our duty, our responsibility to give space for the important issues. Thank you very much, Congressman Mikee Romero, One Pacman Party List. Yan po, iboto po nyo. Hindi ako nahihiyang i-endorse kasi nagtratrabaho naman po. Okay, we'll go for a quick break and when we return, we shift our focus to Lifeline ambulance services, emergency medical services. Now that we are on level 1, some people might get reckless. Let's speak to Michael Deakin so that you can get the tips and find out what you can do in the event of an emergency. We'll be right back here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran. And for this segment, we are bringing in the President and CEO of Lifeline 16911 Medical Incorporated. It is the biggest, fastest, most reliable private ambulance company in the Philippines. It is the first DOH licensed company in the country for Lifeline for ambulance services, and also the DOLE compliance, so that none of the labor issues is ever passed on to customers. But more importantly, Lifeline has been there at everyone's service. So let's bring in Michael Deakin, President and CEO. Michael, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cito. How are you? Thank you for having me.
At least I'm thankful I did not have to avail of my membership from Lifeline in the last 2 years during COVID.
Thank God.
Thank God for that. But what was it like for you guys? Because I remember in the middle of it all, it got to the point where even ambulance drivers were running scared, were already over fatigued, and I think they were the fourth in line in terms of infections or casualties during the COVID surges.
Oh yes, when COVID first started, it was chaos. Not only in the supply chains, with the lack of PPEs and basic supplies, but the fear of what was going on. With Lifeline, we've always planned for this kind of event. We were focused more on disasters like the big one, the big earthquake. So we had protocols in place that helped mitigate our supply chain, and two, the fear with our staff.
Mm-hmm.
But getting over that part of it took the first maybe 6 months of the pandemic. But from day one, I've always told my staff that this is always going to be an 18 months to 2-year pandemic. While everyone was saying it's going to take only a few weeks, it's going to take a couple of months. Historically, we know pandemics take about 18 to 24 months to go through a country and a society, or the world.
Mm-hmm.
Over the last 100 years, we've had 4 pandemics. The 2 big ones being the Spanish influenza in 1918 and now COVID-19, almost 100 years later.
Okay, now my question, or actually what I'm interested to know, is because, as I've already said, I'm subscribed with your company. I've always been telling people to get a package from Lifeline. It's very reasonable. When you compare it to a situation when you actually suddenly need an ambulance and you are not a subscriber and you get some other ambulance company, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg, if not your life. Now, my question as a subscriber, Michael, how was it? What was the customer experience, and what was the Lifeline experience with customers during the COVID surges?
During the peaks, so we're talking about the original, we're talking the Alpha,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about Delta, and then Omicron. We could respond to all members that called. The problem was there was no hospital beds to bring them to.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest challenge became, how do we get them into the hospital? So what we did to mitigate that risk for our members and non-members was to treat them from home. The hardest was Delta, because Delta, the virus affected deep in the lungs. As we saw in India, the biggest challenge was oxygen, which luckily Lifeline had a lot of supply of. So we were able to deliver oxygen and the supplies directly to the home and treat our members at their bedroom.
Yeah, but is that
critical.
Sorry, Michael, but is that part of the package? I thought the only thing I was paying for was to make sure that if I drop or fall or whatever, you send an ambulance and EMTs. At the most, maybe they'll give me CPR and rush me to the nearest hospital. But home care.
Yes, we've always done, for the last 27 years, we've always had a home care service.
Mm-hmm.
But the as Filipinos, we prefer to go to the hospital. If we're insured, especially, we'd rather be in a safer environment. Now, because we've had those in place, when COVID hit and there were no hospital beds, we immediately just converted their bedrooms into the hospital rooms.
But how easy was it to convince your customers or clientele, ma'am, sorry, or sir, there are no hospitals. We're just going to do it in situ, or or where you live.
Very big challenge. A lot of the clients in the beginning, there was an innate fear of going to the hospital in the first place. That was an advantage to us. But of course, when they would panic and they couldn't breathe, it was literally having to rush them to the hospital. So the most critical cases, Cito, we were taking from Metro Manila as far as Baguio, Batangas, to the provincial hospitals where there were beds available. But most people, once we convinced them that, look, we can handle it from your home, and assured them that we had all of the equipment and tools necessary, most of them started to adapt to that. So with Omicron, which was the highest infectious rate, majority were treated from home. The ones who insisted on going to the hospital, we were like everybody else. The lines were hours waiting for admission into the ER. And we had one case which took over 19 hours to get them into the hospital. So we had to treat them inside the ambulance, which is basically what we can do from your home. We just move all the equipment into your bedroom.
Okay. Now, what was I don't know how to term it, but let's just call it the success rate. And what were the losses like when you guys had to take matters into your own hands, so to speak?
We were actually better prepared doing it from their home than the hospitals. And
why is that? How is it? Okay, you've got the oxygen, you've got the equipment. I mean, how do you determine, okay, guys, this is still within our capacities, or did you have infectious disease doctors on call or available or part of the team?
All of our infectious control or doctors were online guiding us through. So the only time we would rush them to the hospital was at the stage where they needed intubation and to be put onto the life support. So those cases, thankfully, were quite low comparative to the number of infections we were dealing with. Now, because we monitor everything, O2 saturation is one of the things we use to monitor. Once it dropped below, let's say 95 to 92%, we'd already rushed them to the hospital. But again, a lot of it is if we can manage it, from the home, we managed it from there.
Okay,
like
now,
go on.
Yeah, but what about the non-COVID cases? Was it light during the last 2 years, or did you still have a bulk of clients that needed attention? And how did you deal with it, given that the hospitals were all filled up?
That was our biggest challenge. Lifeline in 2019 averaged about 100 emergency rescues a day. When COVID hit in 2020, the number of runs dropped down to about 20 a day. So it gave us time to be able to adapt to the situation. But that does not change the statistics of heart attacks, strokes, diabetic emergencies, etc., car accidents, and so forth. So again, that became the biggest challenge until the hospitals, which pivoted very, very quickly into what they call the hot and cold zones. So there was a COVID area where we would rush them all in, and we treated everybody has COVID, right, until proven otherwise. Once tested, we immediately moved them into the cold ward and then treated them, where the hospitals would treat them from there.
Okay,
So,
what happened to your people, your ambulance drivers, the EMTs, etc.? What was the infection rate or transmission rate to your own staff?
I've got 300 staff, and we had an effective infection rate of about 40%. So it was high because we were directly dealing with the patients with COVID in an enclosed room, such as an ambulance. and waiting for hours to get in. So, and the same thing applied at home. So when one crew went down, the other 8 that made the team of the ambulance, it's 3 per shift, so 9 people to run an ambulance, the entire ambulance would be quarantined. Now, rather than waiting for any support or government help, all we did was we started to make arrangements with our own hotels, quarantine hotels around Metro Manila, and started to put our staff there, and set up the hotel rooms with the equipment and necessary supplies needed to keep them healthy. We lost no staff member died during COVID. Thankfully.
Okay. There were presumptions, false perhaps, that wow, the ambulance companies were making a killing, that it was such a profitable business because there were no more ambulances available. What was the reality for Lifeline?
Well, Lifeline, Cito, as you know, is a membership-based company. So when you're a member, all of this is free of charge. What became the biggest expense that was passed on in the beginning was the PPEs. When masks that normally cost 2 pesos, in 2019, jumped to 25 pesos, and you're changing it constantly, millions was spent, on having we made our own PPE in the beginning, and we made our own alcohol because there was no supplies in the market. When there was no alcohol available, this is disinfecting alcohol, we had to make the alcohol from distillers, ones who made gin and rum. And but it got us through the worst part of the original virus, the alpha. Once prices stabilized, no charges were passed on to clients. So it's false that ambulance companies were making money, or at least with Lifeline. We actually lost quite a lot over the last 2 years because for members, the response is all free of charge.
Okay, so you didn't go, you weren't laughing all the way to the bank. 40% of your staff were infected during the 2-year COVID period, and then you lost a lot of money. But what about personnel? Because many hospitals have been sharing with me that they had a noticeable drop in their roster. People would quit. Even some doctors would just say, I'm fed up. I'm not going to risk my life, etc. What about in Lifeline? Did you come to encounter a lot of resignations, or were there a lot of nurses who quit, or EMTs?
In the beginning, we had a few nurses that quit. We had a couple that were suicidal during quarantine. This became more of fear. So what was very important is communication. Now, it's easy for me to communicate with 300 staff versus, let's say, Congressman Mikee, who has to talk to millions of people and convince them. So when the communication was open, they knew that the support was there. And more in particular, Cito, every manager an executive from myself down never missed a day in Lifeline, and still haven't during the last 2 years. We led from the top down, and so it's when they see us there, they know they're doing their job and all support will be given. The resignations that affected us were people poaching our staff to go overseas because they were lacking nurses. So the Middle East was pulling our staff out, offering them large amounts of money to get out of the country, and that we cannot compete with. Regards to the local levels and salaries, we kept our staff with incentive bonuses. We did not want to call it hazard pay. There was a lot of talk about that in the hospitals. With my crew, like we've always told them, our job is hazardous already. You're being paid according to that hazard. COVID is no different to tuberculosis that kills millions of people. So what we did was incentive pays during the lockdowns. food, medication, pay. We set up. We have life pods that are spread across Metro Manila. These were converted to homes. Hotel rooms were not just for quarantine, but for staff who did not want to go home after work in fear of passing on anything to their families.
Mhm.
So that was all put into place. And then again, constant communication with them.
What about lives saved? Because I mean, I've been promoting Lifeline to friends and even viewers because it is an essential part of today's lifestyle. Now the question is, we're members. How many members did you save from the brink of death, so to speak?
Last year was 11,320. And in 2020 was just under that at 11,000, about 11,056.
Were there dramatic saves, where the member was just like, "I love you guys," or "I'm going to give you my part of my estate," or something like that? Because you hear these stories from abroad, where a person gets rescued, near death experience, and when they come back, "I'm going to bequeath my part of my estate to this ambulance driver," etc. Well, any dramatic scenes or stories to share?
We had one emergency that ended up being a beautiful story. We were responding to a member in Makati and going for a home service treatment. It was a non-COVID case, non-emergency. And as our crew was walking into the building, into the apartment building, as the elevator doors opened, this mother came rushing out with must have been about 9-month-old baby that was lifeless. It was starting to turn blue, and she just came out of the elevator screaming, saw our staff, must have recognized the uniform, and just handed the baby over to the team leader, to one of our staff, and just ran out into the street screaming. The team leader didn't panic, looked at the baby that was turning blue very, very fast, and just went through the basic ABC, the airway, breathing, circulation. Started the process, slapping the back, clearing the throat, and did it 5 or 6 times before all of a sudden the baby had let out a lot of phlegm, and started to turn pink again. And then literally, as the baby started to scream, the mother was still crying on the street, understandably, in a panic. The baby was fine already, and we handed the baby back to the mother. And they couldn't believe it. This baby was, for all intents and purposes, dead. And it turned out that the reason why she had recognized the crew was a week before we had serviced her father during an emergency, and she had remembered the uniform. And as it happened, the same person that helped save the father saved the baby a week later.
Wow. Okay. Well,
So what we got was, because we don't accept tips, we don't accept these, but what we got was about 50 pizzas being sent to our dispatch.
okay.
No, thank you.
Okay. We love the gratitude, but that's not healthy for Michael Deakin.
No,
Okay.
definitely not.
Okay. Well, Michael, thank you very much. The title Lifeline is well earned. And I am sure that baby may one day knock at your door and say, "I'd like to sign up." Thank you very much, Mr. Michael Deakin, Lifeline 16911. For our viewers, please consider subscription to Lifeline, because when you need medical assistance, they are at your door. Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome, Cito. Thank you. Good morning.
Okay, and that's Michael Deakin. Now let's move on to, are we going for a break? I don't think so. We will go on to our next interview. Let's bring in Miss Julia Abad, Executive Director, Philippine Business Coalition for Women Empowerment, PBCWE. Julia, good morning.
Good morning, Cito. How are you? It's nice to be back.
Yes, and please do tell us what exactly is this rumor. I heard that you're having a special event for women empowerment. What's this project or this event, and what is it for? How are you going to stage it?
So, we've been working, just a little backgrounder before I tell you about the event, no.
Okay.
As you can probably sense, companies in the last couple of years have really been talking more than beyond just making profit, right? Companies are increasingly involved in activities to care for the planet and also to care for, just as importantly, to care for the people who work within the company. So really looking at their value to the communities, aside from providing services, providing goods, making profit, providing employment.
Mhm.
And government, to its credit, through the SEC, has also begun to acknowledge this work that companies have been doing around sustainability. And in 2019, the SEC released a memo that asked companies to formally also report to them what companies are doing to take care of their people, to take care of the environment. And we have been helping them to come out with how to help companies report, but specifically on the topic of diversity.
Mhm.
And so tomorrow, we are launching an event with UN Women on these sustainability reports, which will tell us what the top publicly listed companies in the Philippines are doing with regard to sustainability, and in particular, their efforts at making sure that they have diverse, gender diverse, gender equal workplaces, that they're doing their part to make sure that their companies are representative of a diverse community. Um, so that's happening tomorrow from 9:30 to 11:30, still online.
Mhm.
And we will be having speakers from AIM, from the SEC, from the Stock Exchange, from Investing in Women, and also from PBCW. And some of our member companies will also be there to talk about their sustainability initiatives.
Okay, now that's very interesting because I'm sure a lot of the media will be covering it. But how about smaller organizations, private businesses? Is this a by invitation only event, or do you need to pay, buy a ticket, or is it available through Zoom or YouTube?
It's open. You just register,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
And
via Zoom.
okay, so can you give us I don't know if we can flash the link for that event, but the event is titled Accelerating the
There.
Sustainability Momentum and Workplace Gender Equality Advantage. Okay, now, because we only have a few minutes left, Julia, well, yeah, I'm sure you'll be visiting us in the future, but
I hope
uh,
so.
yes, but what does that event hope to achieve? Okay, so there will be the reports, there will be the speakers, but what's the end? What's the goal of this event?
Well, so now the reporting of your initiatives, what you're doing to promote gender diversity in your workforce, is a purely voluntary exercise, and since it's fairly new, companies are still learning how to do it. And we're still trying to help them also talk about how this helps them, not only in terms of taking care of their people, but really how it contributes to better operations, also helps them how to sort of track their progress a bit better. Because as you know, everything that gets reported or monitored is really what gets done. If you don't track your progress against your goal, you're really never sure if you're getting close to it or going farther from it. But really, reporting and monitoring helps you stay your track and maintain your focus towards achieving a goal. So really, our objective is to help companies report their gender data a bit better, and help those who are already doing it share their experiences with those who are still learning, to promote the habit of gender reporting, and to talk about how that's helping companies improve their operations and really track their milestones towards creating a more diverse, more welcoming, more inclusive workplace.
Well, many companies or CEOs tend to say to themselves, well, we're very balanced, we're very fair, we're gender sensitive, but in terms of incentives, will there be someone speaking on why it will be profitable to have a gender balanced organization and to track your performance?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that PBCV also helps companies to promote. It's really, diversity is not just something nice that you do for your employees. I mean, of course it is, but having a more diverse workplace also contributes to improving business operations. It creates a more creative workforce. It leads to lower attrition rates, which, as you know, also costs, if you have to keep replacing people. Increased employee satisfaction, which at the end of the day also makes them more productive. Happy employees are also more productive employees. They're more focused on their jobs. They also talk about what companies are doing to discourage workplace harassment or incidences of discrimination, which also costs a company, right? If there's discrimination that happens, you have to deal with looking into it, dealing with the consequences of it. So preventive rather than sort of having to catch up and correct it later is really more beneficial for companies in the long run.
Okay, well, that event is the Accelerating the Sustainability Momentum and Workplace Gender Equality Advantage. That it will be a virtual conference that takes place tomorrow, March 4, Friday, and coincides with the International Women's Day this 2022. Thank you very much, Ms. Julia Abad, and perhaps maybe you can give us feedback at a later date on the accomplishments of the event when possible. Thank you very much, Julia.
Thank you, Cito, and thank you for helping us promote the event. We'll see you again. Have a good day.
Okay, and you too, Julia, thank you very much. And I leave you now, ladies and gentlemen, with our blessing for the week from the book of Psalms, chapter 112, verses 1 to 4. Praise the Lord. Blessed are those who fear the Lord, who find great delight in his commands. Their children will be mighty in the land. The generation of the upright will be blessed. Wealth and riches are in their houses, and their righteousness endures forever. Even in darkness, light dawns for the upright and for those who are gracious and compassionate and righteous. And that's today's agenda. Thank you for joining us here on Cignal TV, One News PH. God bless all of you. See you tomorrow. Have a great day.